And so I guess the quality of our relationships is something that people often talk about being extremely important into the well-being of most individuals. Does that put extroverts at an advantage?
So going back to the first part of the question, I would say, based on the research, that it's the most important factor. I've spent almost all my life studying and researching and talking and practicing clinical psychology, positive psychology, and if I had to summarise the most important factor for good mental health, for happiness, for quality of life, for health and well-being, for longevity, I would almost certainly say it's about the quality of our relationships. And that includes not just, it includes our intimate relationships, husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, parents, etc., but also our community. So, like a sense of belonging, a sense of connectedness, that sort of thing as well. So there's absolutely no doubt that is vitally important. Does that put extroverts at an advantage? That's a much more complex question to answer. And so there's certainly some research that suggests that. My interpretation is it's a little bit misleading, because I think what's most important is what I would call authenticity, I suppose. And as an introvert myself, I would say, if I were to try to be an extrovert, which I've done in the past, it doesn't work. Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Well, so I'll give you an example. So when I first started doing a lot of public speaking and media work, which kind of came about by accident, I kind of thought I had to be, this Anthony Robbins type character, and I'm not. And it was a dismal fake. I mean, it was kind of fraud. It was fake. People could tell it wasn't real, and I could tell it wasn't. I didn't feel comfortable with it. So I learned pretty quickly that wasn't going to work, and I learned quite quickly that I could actually be a good speaker, a good communicator, in my less energised, slightly quieter way. And it's the same with relationships.
Does that mean there's early footage of you jumping around a room?
Probably. Actually, you just reminded me. I probably should go and find it and delete it. It's funny. I mean, I do kind of turn into a bit more of an extrovert when I get on stage, which is probably another discussion. But what as an introvert myself, I've also learned, that doesn't mean I can't have good quality relationships. It just means I'll enjoy those relationships in a slightly different way. So
yes, but what I meant to say is there even a slight differential in advantage to an extroverted person, do you think?
According to a number of studies, probably yes. But I really want to emphasise that it doesn't in any way mean that introverts can't be happy or just as happy.
Of course, yeah. I mean, because it's such a difficult and subjective thing to measure. It's so hard to know. Would it be one of those things where, somebody is 51% more likely to be happy if they're extroverted, and at that point, at the distribution end ranges, you've got all the introverts and all the extroverts.
Well, kind of, and that's actually a really important point. I mean, often I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head there. Too often we think about introverts as extroverts as this dichotomy, that you're either one or the other. That's not the case. The reality is it's a dimension. And like most dimensions, particularly in psychology, most of us are kind of somewhere in the middle. And even so, there's this relatively new phrase called ambivert, which is probably what I am in a way, which is someone that fluctuates backwards and forwards a bit depending on the context, depending on the circumstances. So again, and maybe you're right, so when I get on stage to speak, I almost turn into a different person. I mean, I'm not a different person, but I certainly become a lot more alive and even like I am now, I suppose. I'm kind of energised when I'm talking about something that I'm passionate about. But then in many other situations, I'll go, back more to my sort of natural habitat in a sense, which is a quieter, more insular sort of person. But I think that's the key point. It's not that you're either one or the other. Most of us are kind of in the middle, and there's a few people that are either extreme, and that's, maybe there's a significant difference at those extremes, but for most of us, it's not going to be, certainly won't be the most significant and most important factor.
To check out the full interview, there'll be a link somewhere. I'm sure you'll figure it out. You're an adult, presumably.